And here we are. Welcome to next week's Life Podcast. I got two of my great friends. Thanks for joining us for this particular show. I know you were trying to schedule and reschedule, and we finally got it together. So you got Gary Rigelsky, our fellow RVer for the Rat Pack, Patriot Pack, Normal Pack, whatever pack we are on any particular day. And by the way, Gary, thanks for all the video you took. So Gary Rigelsky with DLL. We have the DLL family here today. We have Julianna Landolt. So if you don't mind, I'm going to start the show a little bit different. I'm going to ask you to start with Gary, to introduce yourselves, and if you would explain to the audience what your role is at DLL.
Sure.
So Gary?
Gary Rigelsky, I've been in the office products industry since, let's just call it the 1980s. So started out with Eaton Financial, still work with a lot of the same people I started with back in the 80s, which is, kind of a statement for this industry. From there, I went to Alco, became Icon. From there to GE, spent a couple years at Great America and went back to GE, and then came here in 2009 and been here ever since. So my role is sales manager, head of U.S. sales. Basically, we have an outside field sales organization that I run. We have different areas around the country where we have reps, and I believe we have right now about 12 reps externally. And I have a counterpart in California, Brian Chandler, that runs the West Coast over there. So that's basically what I do. We do have some dotted line responsibilities, excuse me, for the hubs. We have a hub in Jacksonville, we have a hub in Las Vegas, and we have our main hub in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia in Wayne, Pennsylvania.
So you started in the business when? I missed that.
I don't know if I wanted to repeat that. Let's say 1987.
Okay, 1987. So you're a youngster.
Yeah.
So, so Gary, thank you. And I'm going to come back a little bit to the DLL part of your career. Some interesting questions about being a bank versus not and all of that. And how many times you've been to Eindhoven. So Juliana, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you the same question. Could you share with the audience your background and how long you've been with DLL and what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. And my history is a little less tenured than Gary's, but I'm a little younger too, so it's okay. I have been in the professional services marketing space for coming up on 10 years. I started in a more traditional banking environment, working in marketing. And then I actually moved over to a law firm for several years. So working for a global law firm doing marketing and business development. And then I joined DLL about 3.5 years ago as the North American marketing manager for our office technology and software verticals. And then in the middle of the pandemic, I took on the global position. So I now run global strategic marketing for all 22 countries that we serve in the office technology space. And I have been doing that now for, 2 years. So it's been a really fun learning experience. I get to work with people like Gary every day, which is wonderful. And effectively, my responsibilities range from, traditional marketing assets. So making sure we've got the right rate communications out there and promotions and flyers, all the way to, market intelligence where we're doing, pretty in-depth research to support our partners, and kind of everything in between, events, sponsorships, things like that. So my job really runs the gamut every day. I wear a different hat. But it's been a really fun 3.5 years, and I feel very lucky to be at DLL.
So your background includes legal and banking, which is that's kind of boring, isn't it?
It is boring, but marketing makes it fun. So,
Yeah. Well, you've got actually the right background for what you're doing. I mean, you need that framework, right?
Yeah.
All of the language for the contracts and all of that. So welcome to the show. And 22 countries? You're responsible for 22 countries or so?
About
So
that, yeah.
I'm kind of curious for both of you, but I'll start with Juliana. 22 countries during the middle of COVID, that had to present an extraordinary set of resources. How'd you deal with that?
We are lucky to have really strong local, both commercial and operations teams that support our commercial organization and our go-to-market strategy. And they also know the local markets far better than I ever could. So you mentioned COVID. I mean, some countries took very different approaches to, the way they reacted and different restrictions and things like that. So for DLL, we have a really strong framework of in-country support, which allows us to sort of be the experts in both the industry segment, but also the regional segment. And we can appropriately respond to our partner needs, customer needs, the expectations, things like that, while still maintaining our global brand and our very high expectations for ourselves. So having both the industry segmentation, but also the regional approach, we think is the right match. And I think COVID was a really appropriate test for that, because it showed our strength that, we had no disruption in service because we have those local teams.
Well, if you have any openings in Italy, I'm happy to go help you recruit or do whatever. Just let me know.
You and me both. I'm waiting for the call. So
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I mean, we were, what was it, March 20th of 2020? We, the week before we had 2,000 people in the office. The week after we had nobody in the office. It was a
Wow.
shock. But, like Julianna said, we've got some great local relationships. You know, more than half of our commercial staff has been with DLL for 25 to 30 years. So we have a very long tenured commercial organization and relationships that go along with it.
So 2,000 people, that's worldwide, can I assume?
U.S.
Oh, that's in the U.S.,
Just in the U.S.
just the
I
U.S.
think we're approaching
Wow.
5,500 or 6,000 people globally.
correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. So coming through the pandemic, DLL always has a great reputation for culture and people support experience. How did you deal? How did you find DLL, dealing with all of these work from home situations? 2,000 to 0 in a week. That's a culture shock.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I mean, we had talked about going digital, and we have been digital in a lot of our industry segments. We're in 9 different industries, and we've been digital for more than 20 years in a lot of those industries, meaning, we don't email apps, we don't get documents signed, longhand or via a printer or something like that. It's all done electronically. We've had DocuSign for 20 plus years. We've got 15 different e-signature platforms that we use. And it accelerated that process tremendously within the next several months when COVID first hit, because we went from, getting 11,000 checks a day in a lockbox, to, doing longhand docs and having FedEx trucks backing up to our facility when nobody's there to get the incoming mail, that kind of thing. And you really have to, think on your feet and be able to change overnight to handle that. And it took us a month, but we got to it really quickly.
Yeah, and I think from a culture perspective, as you mentioned, it's always been a point of pride for DLL, and our people, I think, are why we're where we are today. And it was a shift. I mean, even I had only been at DLL, I started in April of 2019. So I wasn't even truly, fully embedded in the culture yet, but you kind of know it when you walk through the door. You feel it. You feel that it's a little bit different from other places. So I think when we didn't have that anymore, it was kind of like, oh, what do we do? But lucky for us, luck was on our side. We had recently done a pretty significant internal IT upgrade too. So we had, and I think this is a lesson for a lot of companies, we had converted to a Teams platform and done the full 365 upgrade. And that gave us the ability, to Gary's point, overnight to set up shop from home. But had we not had that appropriate IT infrastructure, we wouldn't have been as successful. But I think our culture wouldn't have been as well maintained as it was. Like we were doing at the beginning, teams happy hours where people were showing their dogs, and you still kind of felt the culture of the organization in a time when I think people really needed human connection. And I think DLL did a really good job of both facilitating that from a events and team building aspect, but also providing us as members, which we call ourselves, with the right equipment and resources and tools to be able to set up shop at home and be able to call Gary and check in on him and make sure he's doing okay, because we were all,
You never know.
stuck in our houses.
Yeah, and even more so, to Juliana's point, we had hundreds and hundreds of offers out to different process people around the country. Tax, accounting, customer service, collection, sales, you name it, that we followed through with. And some of those people still have never met anybody except on Teams or Zoom via video feed at DLL. So that's been a real transition for those folks as well. But we followed through with all our offers. We hired. It was quite the experience to go through.
So now you fast forward, what is the protocol for DLL today? Work from home, well, how do you deal with that? Is everyone back in the office, or is it a hybrid?
Yeah, well, we just did a massive renovation to our U.S. location in Wayne. I was there 2 weeks ago, and it's unbelievable. Doesn't even begin to cover it. It's such a beautiful space. They did such a good job with it, and they have implemented. We are a true hybrid organization, and DLL's approach is that work has to work for you. So if you are somebody that you need to be in an office, that's where you thrive. The office is open to you, and reserve your desk and reserve your conference room, and it's yours. But if you're somebody that you're like Gary, you're a salesperson, you're on the road, and it really doesn't make sense for you to be there that frequently, that works too. And I think through the pandemic, DLL really acknowledged that we were really productive, but we're missing the collaboration. So how do we create offices and environments that you go to the office for a purpose? You're going there to get something done, to collaborate with a team member, to present, to use the more advanced technology we have in the office, without the mandate of you got to be in and. But I will say I was just on a call with a coworker, and she said she couldn't get a desk last week. It was so busy. So I think it shows that people, if you give them the option, they really are gravitating toward spending time with their teammates and being together.
Yeah, there's just no, face to face is the ultimate. That there's nothing that can take its place. And we're doing a national commercial sales meeting in October. We're going to have a national kickoff meeting in February, the first week of February, and I'm sure there will be on the commercial side. I mean, at our last face-to-face kickoff meeting, I think there were 1,100 people that we had. Wow. But we do global kickoffs. We've had them in overseas in Europe. We've had them in the U.S. This one's going to be a regional kickoff meeting. It's U.S. only, but we're slowly getting back into that face-to-face time. And as our customers allowed us to, we got back in face-to-face with our customers and our partners. That's the main thing.
So you're allowing flexibility, basically, and people are finding their own path, which appears to be a lot of people coming back. Mm-hmm. And according to you, your new building and all of that. So it's an encouragement for people to want to get back. So Gary and Juliana, these past couple of years, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but there seemed to be a compounded COVID, supply chain, all kinds of really strange things that really conflicted the industry in a really, really tough way. So on top of the pandemic, then you get the supply chain. People can't get machines. They can't get them. Even if you have DocuSign, there's nothing to DocuSign because they can't deliver it. So Gary, I'm kind of curious how do you see the rest of this year? Is the supply chain issue becoming less severe, and do you see the rest of the year in a good place? Is DLL going to be able to be in a good place by the end of the year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be another 3 to 6 months before we're back at where we were pre-pandemic levels. I go to a lot of vendors every week, and I still see warehouses that are half full. Whether it's a chip problem, whether it's equipment problems, there's still a lack of equipment out there. We've got backlogs a mile long from a lot of vendors across the country of deals that we can't get, final install because we're missing, 15 sorters, 15 finishers, or whatever the case may be, or they have the finishers, they don't have the main unit. So I think that's still an issue, and it depends on the manufacturer as to when that's going to be solved. And we all hear the rumors that are going on, with different manufacturers and when their supply chain is going to be fixed. But I think we're into 2023 until we see us back at 100%.
Did DLL, how did you adjust to these back orders and no inventory and all of that? Did you do anything unique to help the dealer?
Depends on the vendor relationship and how long we've been a partner. We've got partners that we've been together with, since the late 80s, and we're still together, and we've got partners that are brand new. And, if the customer wanted to get rid of old equipment and bring in a partial new deal, we deal with that on a dealer by dealer basis. So we didn't do a generic across the board, hey, here's what we'll do. We did it partner by partner, depending on what their needs were.
Yeah, depending on the history you had with that particular
Yeah.
outlet. So Juliana, how did you adjust your marketing, with all of that going on? What did you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I assumed the role, the global position, who was, for the first time, maybe making a decision about what we were putting out there. And it was interesting because it was, I think, an uncharted time, but I took that as an opportunity to kind of, chart our own course. And one of the things I observed was that people were they were hungry for data and information and any way that they could, support their organizations too. Like supply chain's a perfect example of what's going on. What do you guys see? So rather than making a hard sell about leasing, I think this industry, leasing it's part of it, right? Like I don't have to sell the value of leasing. We know it's valuable. We know why it's important to organizations. But what I could sell was the value of DLL as a leasing partner, that we have a really interesting perspective on the business. We have a global perspective. We see this industry through a slightly different lens, and how could we promote that? So, I took a step back and we started writing more long form pieces and trend reports and giving them to Gary so he can walk into a dealer and say, hey guys, like, I want to make sure you have this, and really lining up with our strategic approach of, we are a business partner. We are a relationship business. And if you don't succeed, we don't succeed. So how can I provide you with the tools and resources to do that? So that was the approach we took. And we've had a good response. I think a lot of dealers have appreciated us giving them information. And in addition to that, like Gary said, not taking a one size fits all approach, I really sat down with the sales managers and, we looked at all of the materials that they had. Is this appropriate for your specific partner? So I spent a lot of time creating custom materials so we could go out and have really frank conversations and provide them with the information that they individually needed. And I don't think without the pandemic, I would have had the bandwidth to do that, because we would have been doing events and things like that. So it really gave me the opportunity to step back and say, are we focusing enough on the individual partners here? And now that's par for the course. I meet with the salespeople, it feels like every hour some days, to make sure that they've got exactly what they need for their specific relationship. And I think that sort of more account-based marketing, it's just what we need, and it's what the partners need, and that's what I'm here to do. So.
Yeah, and even more so in Juliana's case, because in my case, I'm just U.S. based. I don't have to worry about 22 different countries and Dutch regulations and federal regulations, banking regulations and things like that are going to determine what we may or may not be able to offer in the U.S. And that doesn't necessarily fit with Brazil or with Italy or with Germany or Ireland or the UK, where we have different operations, different go-to-markets, and Juliana's got to worry about what message and what can we do from a regulation standpoint in every country, not just the US, which goes back to the original statement. That's why we have local representation for our markets in every country we deal in. And that's just the office imaging part with 22 countries, because I think we're in 35 total if you look at all of
Yep.
our business
Yeah.
units.
So I noticed that maybe it's just me picking up on it, but I noticed that there seems to be a lot of diversification in your social media messaging. You go from the individual, making sure that you're recognizing superstars, and then I noticed that you're also investing quite a bit of time in adjacent markets. So am I reading that properly? Is that the direction DLL is really going to be taking in the future?
Yeah, I think we are always our approach is follow the partner and be prepared for their next step. So we need to have the right products and solutions for when a partner says, "Hey, we're going to go into this adjacent market. We're looking at these different assets," and it's like, "Great, we've done that in a different business unit, or we have the product or service to support that." So we always want to make sure that we're in lockstep. And in order to make sure that the partner knows that, we're putting that on social media. We're talking about our diversification, the types of assets that we're seeing. So, from a marketing perspective, what I want is a dealer or a partner to see that and say, "Oh, I didn't even realize DLL did that." So that's our objective with any, publicity, social media, press releases. That's what we want to get across.
And even more so with our industry, especially the dealers are going to diversify, uh, not by choice. They're going to have to diversify to keep going. So, we made, like, we were already in the EV charging market in another vertical. Some dealers are starting to pick that up. We're already in IT, we're already in software, we're already in managed services, that type of thing. As dealers diversify and get into different markets, the odds are we've already touched that market. We understand the market. We've got documents specific to that market. There's laws and regulations for every market you can think of that are different. So it's a task for sure.
So again, continuing down that line of thinking, how are you feeling about the ability for the dealer to diversify? How do you see the next, call it 23? How do you see the rest of this year and 23? Are you optimistic? How are you feeling about the community?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that one. I think for the most part, you tend to BTA or CDA or the ECS. Everybody's talking about diversification. People are trying to figure out in their own businesses what they're going to do next. Are they going to diversify? What products are they taking on? Are they going through an acquisition mode? Are they looking to acquire? I mean, I think all that stuff's on the table. And I think there are some people who are looking to be acquired. There are some people who are looking to diversify as much as possible. And, it sounds great, but it's not easy to do because you got a lot of salespeople who are used to selling one way and one product. And do you bring on another sales force, or do you bring on, a new product and have your same commercial team sell different products?
Well,
Business for different dealers.
absolutely. And I have another question. Juliana, did you want to add anything to what Gary
Oh no,
said?
I was just going to add my boss, or Gary, and I'm the same boss. He always mentions that there was a time where thermal fax paper was a massive part of the business, right? And I think the other thing is that the evolution, especially in the office technology space, it's not new, right? Like we've done this before. There has been an evolution. There's been a shift to new assets. It's just to your point, what you said earlier, it's sort of compounded. We had the pandemic and supply chain and chips, and there's all these other competing factors. But the evolution of our industry is not new. We've done it before, and we'll do it again. So, to answer your question, I feel pretty optimistic about it, and it may look a little bit different than it did last time or the time before, but evolution happens in every industry. I feel really strongly that the dealers that I have met they could sell pretty much anything. So I have faith.
Yeah, well, I think it's in their DNA from the
Yeah.
early 70s. They just can't change. But I think the wonderful part about it, though, there are two about the industry. Besides the fact that they're tenacious and they're persistent, but I see some really interesting things too. You got younger folks coming in and either acquiring dealerships or taking over responsibility, or maybe their family, taking over the dealership. So I get a really good vibe, about that happening. Whether it be somebody like Chelsea Bodie or, Stephanie Keating or some of these younger people that really are determined. They're not interested necessarily in selling. So I get excited about that. Everyone wants to talk about print. But print's not going to go away overnight, and we've been
Right.
saying that too. But I think the other thing too, and I'm kind of curious how you feel about this, when you look at a dealership, and let's say they have 10,000 accounts, right, or whatever the number might be, I am hearing routinely now the dealer focus is to sell into that base, to diversify within that base, whether it be IT services or whatever. Are you hearing and feeling the same thing?
Without a doubt. I mean, whether it's, IT services, whether it's telephony products, whatever the products are, as they bring more products to their dealership, they're going back to their base and they're cross-selling everything. That's the low-hanging fruit. And I mean, that's,
Yeah, and are you marketing to that?
we are.
How are you, how are you helping the dealer
Yeah,
with
I
that
mean,
idea?
we just don't, finance the copier. We finance the customer, the lessee. And if they want, to throw other assets in there, we're not opposed to it at all. That's just the way the industry is going. And back to your point, about being optimistic, you wouldn't have, PEs and mega dealers doing acquisitions if the industry was going south. They're out there acquiring for a reason, and it's positive.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. That's one of the biggest bullet points I think we have, right? So, all right. So more on the personal side. So, Juliana, you've worked with Gary for 3 years now, roughly,
Hmm.
right? So, what is the funniest thing he has done that you could talk about?
That is a loaded question. Um, you know what? It's funny. We have a team member who she'll be so mad at me for telling the story, but Gary's a tall guy. I don't know if you know that. He's very tall. And we were
Yes.
out on a trip, a group of us, and she is a little bit younger. And he started just saying that it was his daughter. It wasn't, just to give her a hard time, just to embarrass her a little bit. And it's become a little bit of a joke now. And I think it's very funny. But that's what Gary does. He is an unbelievable jokester, but he doesn't prepare you for it. He just makes the joke, and you have to react to it in real time. But Gary's a good time. He's a very fun person to go on a work trip with. So
So,
I
Gary,
remember
we're
that.
going to remember. We're going to remember that one when we have a microphone and 300 people in front of us.
I'm not
But
like that.
so,
I have no funny stories about Juliana that I would say, but I will say, I've been here 14 years, something like that. I've never worked with anybody with the intellect that Juliana has. I mean, she has brought a world of change to our organization that we needed, both on a local and a global basis. Just phenomenal. Insane.
well, that's quite a testimony. I mean, I've only worked with Juliana here and there, virtually and at ECS, and clearly, I always have the feeling when I'm around you, whether it be virtually or certainly in front of you, you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm
You are
she is.
you are
Yeah.
thinking. You're scanning, you're looking, you're processing, and I noticed that at ECS, last January. So when you processed last ECS, what did you walk away from? What was your like, holy cow?
yeah, no, it was. First of all, thank you both. That's very kind. And now I feel bad that I told a funny anecdote about Gary and didn't, tell him how great he is, because he
There's
is great.
paybacks. It's coming.
Gary's a top-notch salesperson. No, what was interesting, and I mentioned this, like I've spent a good portion of my time with DLL in my house, and not out and about. And I think what was the largest takeaway for me was the connectivity and the willingness to share among competitors and different cross-functional vendor relationships and things like that, if one of us succeeds, we all succeed. Like that was really what I took away from that. And I think from what I've observed that the pandemic has really enhanced that, if you win, I win. And that was what I really took away from the meeting, was that people were desperate to kind of get out and see each other and encourage each other, but more so share what they had learned. Hearing from some of the manufacturers, all being in the same room, sharing, how they were getting through this. It was really, it was, like I said, I feel really optimistic about the future of the industry, and that's part of it, is because I was able to sit through that and be like, oh, we've got some very smart people here that are leading the charge and making things happen.
Yeah, I mean, spot on too. I couldn't agree with her more. Just, we're with the same people in the same industry for a lifetime, it seems. And, I know people from my Eaton days. I talked to Kim Loudon and Jenny Fisher, Greg Vanderwalker, from Great America. Tony was there last time, made a great speech. It's so neat that you can carry on those kind of relationships. And you're not sharing industry secrets, but as Juliana said, if one succeeds, we all succeed. Couldn't be truer.
Well, I think, the last ECS, I was shocked, to be candid with you. We made a decision to do it in a short period of time, and we, like 90 days. And it was wonderful to see all the people and get everybody together and do what you just said, Juliana, float all boats. And I think there was a bit of a jailbreak attitude to, hey, first time we're out in the world. But it also is a testimony to people like you. People like you who come with an open mind. The company DLL was well represented. I think you may have been a little bit surprised at it, what transpired, because who could be prepared for that? I mean, it just worked out really, really well. But I love the fact that, when I look at DLL, you're always committed to the industry. And there's always that sense of community with what you do. So my hat's off to you. When you have that kind of experience like Gary, you have, all those years with Icon or Alco or whoever throughout, there's a sense of ownership, pride, and I think loyalty to the people you work with. And now we're all trying to figure out what to do next. So when you look at your what's next plan, for next year, are you in the midst of, at the end of? You said you have a kickoff in February. What's the big thing for you guys in the new year, in 23, if you can
Wow,
say?
that's a great question. I mean, we're working on 2025. 2023 is already here for us, but that's a great question. Like you said, there's a lot of things working that we really can't divulge, but we're finalizing 2023 budgets as we speak this week. So that's the question. Where are we going to be? Where are we going to end up this year? What's the Fed going to do? Huge question in our industry. They're back at it again today. Are they going to raise rates? What's going to happen to rate factors, or lease rates going into 2023? What's going to happen to inflation? There's so many questions from that aspect that haven't been answered that really affect our industry heavy. That's the big thing. We just had a major hurricane come through Puerto Rico again, and we do a lot of business down there. What's going to happen with that? I've been on the phone all morning to different partners down there trying to figure out how we can help. Are we going to set up rules internally to give, extensions on leases, that kind of thing. So it's here already, 2023 in my mind.
And from a marketing perspective, Juliana?
Yeah, no, I'll echo what Gary said, and I have the luxury of, from a marketing perspective, it's a little bit easier for me to put together like an editorial calendar, right? Like I can say, hey, let's do some information on supply chain. I can talk about that stuff. So we are in the thick of our marketing planning for 23. But what we're focused on, and what I mentioned before, is really following the partner and making sure that we are providing them the resources they need to grow their business. And we look at that through a couple of different verticals, but the one the word we use all the time is evolve. That we want to be constantly evolving because our partners are constantly evolving. And if we sit back and rest on like, hey, we're a good leasing company, we got great products, we'll fall behind. So one of the primary areas of focus for us is digital. We are making massive investment in our digital resources and our digital tools, and not just for the partner, but for the customer too, because at the end of the day, that's who we mutually want to make happy, right? Like we want a happy customer who's happy with their whether it be a copier or a sanitization robot or whatever it is, we want them happy with it, and then also happy with how they're paying for it. So we recently instituted a customer experience department, run by a global customer experience expert, and we are taking a hard look at, do we have the right electronic invoicing resources? Do we have the right payment portal resources? So digital is I know that's a cliche answer because everybody feels that way, but it is a massive investment for us, and it's something that's really important.
So a couple of fun questions. Juliana, I'm not going to ask you this one because you weren't even born yet. So, but I got tricked up before on this one. So obviously I'm a huge Sinatra fan, and I have to ask. So I'll start with Gary. Do you have a favorite Sinatra song?
My Way.
There you go.
Gotta be.
See, he has excellent taste. Can you sing?
No, not a no.
All right. So, Juliana, I'm going to ask you if you have, maybe your parents had a great Sinatra favorite, or you do. Do you?
Well, now Gary, I prepared for this because I knew that you would ask this
Oh,
question. So I did think about it, but My Way would have been my answer. And actually my husband's grandfather, who we lost last year, was like a massive rabid, last name was Natal. He was a big Sinatra fan, and that was his song. So I'm going to co-opt his for mine because in his name, that's a special song for us.
Well, Sinatra used that's a great choice for both of you. Sinatra used to call that the national anthem, right? His national anthem. So I think it's a great song. Obviously, I named the show "That's Life," next week's Life after "That's Life." So a couple other quick questions. Gary, do you think you're an optimist or a realist? What are you?
I think I'm an optimist. I'm net positive, always. I hate negative comments. I don't like negativism on my calls, which we get sometimes. I am a very net positive person, very optimistic about what's going to happen. I think we're going to be here for a while in this industry, without a doubt. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
I love that attitude. So now two questions for Juliana. Do you agree that he is an optimist, and what are you? And what are you?
Yes, on our management team, I will say Gary and we're the fun ones. Like we're always bringing a good attitude, and yes, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. And I would say I'm an aggressive optimist. I think I'm optimistic about DLL. I'm optimistic about the industry, about our team. We've gone through a lot of change, and we're still churning out a ton of business, and we're really successful, and it's hard to not be optimistic about that.
Well, the saying, people sometimes say, "Oh, I'm a realist," which somehow gives them
It's boring.
some. So
Yeah.
I just think a realist is an optimist without imagination.
Great.
Yes.
So,
What are you, Mike?
right? Oh, I'm definitely. I'm an optimist. I'm over the top stupid. I only see good. I don't like being around negative people like you, Gary. When anyone can be negative at any time in the day, right? It's a choice.
It is. I totally
So,
agree. Yeah,
wake up in the morning. You're lucky to be up, feet on the ground.
and that's the truth.
Just get at it. So, one final question. When you look into your crystal ball, and you said you're in 23 already. Most Japanese companies are still in, this fiscal year, and they'll be in this fiscal year through March. So I'm kind of curious, there's all kinds of talk about what to expect in the new year, as far as, mergers, acquisitions, and things like that. I know you're an optimist, you just said it, but do you see anything down the road that you would say, you know what, it's going to happen? If it's going to happen, it's going to happen in 23, and it's a good thing. So if you look through that prism, what do you see?
Well, I think we'll see some manufacturers come together, and I think you may see some leasing companies come together from an acquisition standpoint. I really do. I mean, there's a couple new players in the market. I don't know if there's enough room for everybody. Uh, we'll see what happens. It will be quite interesting to see if everybody can survive. Um, you know, inflation, the Fed funds going up again. Uh, the same thing on the office product side. Is there going to be a national mega dealer finally? Is 2023 the year? I think it is. I really do.
I would have to agree with you. I, First of all, I think some of them already have a national footprint,
I do
but
too.
I think it's going to be a big footprint, coming in 20.
I think so too. I think we may see a mega buy out of mega. I mean, that would be
Yeah.
interesting. But that, and I'm really excited about January 15th. That's I think it's last year was our first year. Really exposed to it. Now we know what to expect, and it's I don't know where you're going to put everybody because it seems like the consortium has doubled since we were part of it last year. It's unbelievable, and everybody is represented that I can tell. I mean, it's bigger than any CDA, BTA. I mean, everybody's there.
Well, I appreciate that support, and it's honestly in large part because of people like you both and Shannon, helping to promote it and making it better and better. So Juliana, same question, and thank you for the testimony for ECS. I think it is going to be awesome, and we are going to have a very difficult time keeping the head count to where we want it. We capped it at 300, and we're going to stay there, so people can do what they need to do. So Juliana, I know, again, following what Gary was talking about, what do you expect the message from DLL to be at ECS, since you are a wonderful sponsor, and which we're all really grateful for, and you have the stage, so you have a chance. What teaser would you give the audience about what you think you're going to do?
Yeah, I mentioned it a little bit before, but I think we've been everybody the last going on 3 years, which is kind of crazy. We've all been sort of in triage mode, right? Like, let's put this over here. We'll figure that out later. And I think our message right now is that we are back to business. We are back in offices. We are making investments, and we're moving forward. And part of that is, and I mentioned it before, is putting the customer at the center of everything that we're doing right now, and communicating to the dealer that our partnership together, we're going to go out and close that sale. We're going to go out and help you win that business, and we're going to do it together. And here's the way that from an advice perspective, right? Like, here's what we've learned. Here's where we've fallen down. Here's where we've made mistakes. But here's where we think that we can provide advice to the larger group and to everybody in the room, not just our partners, but other service providers. So I think that for us, the teaser would be, we learned a lot the last 3 years, and we really want to share that with the group, and hopefully, our mistake can, what's the expression? If you look in my rearview mirror, you might miss some of the potholes that I hit. So I think that's sort of what we'd like to do. Um, so we're looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to being a part of it. And again, just seeing everybody. And I'm not one of these people, but I'm sure there are many people who are ready to get out to Arizona to golf in the winter. But we're excited about it.
Well, we're winding down here, and so I wanted to give you an opportunity. If there's one strong message you would like to send to the community, to the dealer community, as we end this year, what would it be? Just one simple, strong message.
I give you mine. We've been here for 50 years. We're going to be here for another 50 years. Can't wait.
Awesome. And Juliana?
I'm going to go even shorter than Gary's. That we got this. Whatever's coming, we've got this. So
I like that. We got
yeah.
this. Well, again, to summarize, you two are wonderful. I've always enjoyed, working with you, especially Juliana lately. You have this great chance. Gary for years, and the team at DLL is honestly a great team. I've had wonderful experiences with DLL for years. I was even invited a couple times, I believe, to your kickoff meetings. I had a lot of fun with that. And I know some of those guys are still there. Some of the folks are still there. But DLL has got a great culture, a wonderful team of people. I love your spirit. I love the attitude that you present to the marketplace. You're professional. The professional courtesy is really, you're peerless, right? So my encouragement for you and for the DLL team is, number one, finish up strong. Do it. What'd you say? I got this. We got this. I
We
like
got
that.
this.
Go get it. So just go get it. And again, thank you too for not to be forgetful, but you supported the PAC. You've done wonderful things in supporting that ride, helping very seriously ill, if not terminally ill, children. So DLL has heart. So that's the bottom line there. So I'll look forward to talking with you again soon, and hopefully I'll see you at CDA or someplace coming up here soon.
Absolutely.
And with that, I'm going to say have a great finish to the year, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
My pleasure.